Obviously, tomorrow, 9/11, the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. Mark is joining us here on this Friday. Hey, Mark, hopefully you're doing well. Family's doing well. Moose and Maggie with you. Thanks for the time this morning.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be on with you guys. Listen to your show. You do a great job, and happy to be with you today.
Oh, stop. Mark, thank you so much. And, you have one of the iconic moments from post 9/11. Obviously, when the Ranger season got started again, and it was early October, you guys are playing the Buffalo Sabres at the Garden, and we all remember the moment when you were handed the fireman chief's Chief Ray Downey's helmet, and you put it on at that moment, and it's something that has lived on for so long. It's something that people immediately go back to when you think about sports returning after 9/11. And I'm just curious how often you go back to that moment, because it meant so much to so many people.
Well, I think the answer to that is quite often, actually. I don't think any of us will ever forget that moment in 9/11 when the towers came down, the tragedy that ensued. The horrific situation, it's hard to forget, and I think it's a responsibility for us to never forget. And I think, doing these trading days and these charities like we're doing today, all in remembrance of the people that lost their lives, and obviously for the people who survived, aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers. It was a horrible event, but the one thing I always say that it was amazing how proud I think we all were that the city galvanized around each other in that moment like that. And here we are 20 years later, still mourning the losses, obviously, but also celebrating the great lives and the heroics that ensued to help save people, and just remarkable, the human spirit.
I think there was something about that moment. I think why it stayed with people so much and why it hit them so much is because it was organic. It wasn't planned at all. I know that, Larry McGee is from Engine 66 in the Bronx when he presented you and you put on Chief Downey's hat. It just all happened in the moment. And I imagine, you're obviously just going to go with it. And it was something that just because it was organic. And I think that's one of the reasons why it stays with people so much.
Yeah, I think, I just remember thinking back, there's so much confusion. Nobody really knew what to do, what to say. Everybody was so sensitive about doing the wrong thing, when to play, when not to play. Obviously we decided to go, and obviously we're going to honor, the first responders, the FDNY, the NYPD, Port Authority. Beautiful event. And Larry, at the time, skated over on just an impulse and asked me if I'd wear it. Since then, obviously, I've become well aware of who Chief Downey is and was. A remarkable man, so highly respected, huge Ranger fan. It was obviously an honor to not only wear Chief Downey's helmet, but I think what it really did was really kind of represented everybody that not only lost their lives, but also the people who were so heroic in trying to save lives there. So it was kind of a seminal moment that happened spur of the moment. And, to be a part of it, to this day, here we are, like I said, 20 years later, and still people, galvanizing together to help out. So it's been incredible.
Mark, can you take us back to that night after, that unbelievable moment, but that game being back on the ice, for, the first time in front of the Garden faithful, after, the horrific events on 9/11?
Well, I think back even further than that when I first came to New York in 1991, and Friday night at the Garden was just some of the most fun hockey I've ever played.
Yeah.
It didn't matter who we were playing, but if we happened to be playing the Islanders on Friday night, the energy in that building was just incredible. And then all the way through the 94 Cup run, obviously, and the roof coming off when we won, and then years later trying to get back. 2000, we're getting ready to hold our training camp for the first time ever in New York City. We're supposed to be scheduled to be staying down at the Marriott Hotel, the World Trade Center. Chelsea Piers was going to be the location. They canceled it all because the dressing rooms weren't big enough to house 60 NHL players. So all the plans got scrapped. players were able to stay home that lived in the city. Everybody else from out of town was out in Westchester. They moved the training, physical testing to Madison Square Garden that day of 9/11. And then, to your point about the games ensuing, it just took so long for that same kind of energy to come back. Of course, people came back, and of course it was exciting, and of course, it was meaningful and all that stuff. But there was just something just a little bit muted there for quite a few years, and I could tangibly tell the difference. Obviously now we're moving on. We've mourned for 20 years, and we're starting to celebrate the amazing people that were lost 20 years ago.
Mark, the connection that you have to this city, right? Obviously, winning the cup in '94, and taking on the pressure of winning a cup and the guarantee against the Devils, everything through your storied career, whether it be with the Oilers, the Rangers, Canucks, and coming back here to New York. Why do you think you connected so much to this city?
Well, it was interesting coming from Edmonton, where I had a mentor that was 8 days younger than me, Wayne Gretzky, and very rarely do you get to learn from a peer, the same age. But he was so incredible at such an early age, and his focus and the way he handled the press and his consistency, and just so mature in that regard. So I learned so much, and I knew coming to New York that the one thing that I was going to have to be able to do was be really kind of honest and be really truthful and consistent. And because, back then, before social media, the only way that you had a chance to interact with the fans was through the media and through television interviews and whatnot. And so that was the way to communicate with the fans, and being, believable, trustworthy, all the things that we talk about. That was the way to do it. And consistent, no matter, if times were tough or bad or whatever, you still had to face the music and get up in front of everybody and answer the questions respectfully, because everybody has a job to do. Of course, it's tough at times, but, that's part about being. And I think the other thing there was that we had a little bit of a hard hat mentality to our team that I think the fans really kind of, identified with. We went out of our way to reach out to people in the community and to charities, and we just had a lot of character on that team. We just, everybody was just such a great guys, and I think we connected on a really meaningful, deeper level than. And I think I think that's why the parade, obviously 54 years is one thing. 4 generations of fans, 3 generations of fans being able to see it, the Stanley Cup on the ice for the first time, but. All those things kind of came together at just this perfectly beautiful moment that we're still talking about today.
Mark, do you think that this current Rangers team has the ability to have those types of characteristics that you're talking about and be a special team?
Well, you hope so. You hope every team has that opportunity to come together and put all their differences aside and their egos aside, and play for each other. I mean, without that, no team can ever win. That is something that we all know, that if you don't come together and you play for the team, it's just never a championship will never follow. It doesn't matter what city you're in. So, my hope is that players get to experience what we did. To me, that, it's life-changing in so many different ways. And if you can surrender yourself to that idea and kind of forget about the role that the coach wants you to play, and, your contract and all these kinds of stuff, and play for a much more meaningful, idea, that's where the real, to me, that's what the sport and the game is all about. And I think, that's where the magic happens.
Mark, do you think, you had a quote at the end of last season, you got to be able to win a lot of different ways in hockey, right? And one of the ways you got to be able to win a street fight. Do you think with what Drury did this offseason, do you think this Rangers team is better equipped to handle the physicality of the National Hockey League game?
Well, I would have hated to see, the Edmonton Oilers back in the 80s without some of the guys that we had to help us in that regard, with Wayne Gretzky being on the team.
Well, Esa Tikkanen was a pain in the rear end, Mark. I'll tell you that.
Well, Dave Semenko, Kevin McClellan, Marty McSorley, Dave Brown, and then all the other guys. But the one thing that we did have on top of that was our skilled players were super gritty and would play in tough situations. So, you can have all the grit and heaviness surrounding those guys, but they ultimately in tough games and situations have to get in there and they have to go stand in front of the net and they have to get their nose dirty in order to win those games. But yeah, look at I don't think any team that's serious about winning a championship can ever be pushed out of a game no matter what. And I saw it for all the years in Edmonton. Everybody thought we had this beautiful skilled team, which we did, but we never were pushed out of a game in Edmonton, and we were never pushed out of a game in New York when we were there for the team, and especially the team that won the Stanley Cup in 1994.
Mark Messier is our guest, of course, the captain, the Hall of Famer. Do you think that Gerard Gallant was the right hire, Mark? Because I know that you've talked about wanting to coach. Obviously, you're more than a legend in this town. You're on the Mount Rushmore of athletes in this city. Do you think that was the right hire? Do you feel like you should be the head coach of the Rangers?
Oh, no. No, I think Gerard is a great hire. I really like Gerard a lot. I played against Gerard. He was a real solid, honest, tough left winger for Detroit. I think his communication is really simple with the players. I think he lets everybody know where they stand and what's expected of them, which every player needs to know. What they might not like what they're hearing from the coach, but that's not for the coach to decide how they're going to internalize that. That's up for them to figure it out. And ultimately give them the opportunity to figure out if they can play under those kinds of terms. And it's really that simple. You give the player the term, but that he needs to do in order to play, what role you want him to play on the team. And then you give him the opportunity to do that. It might not happen overnight, so you give him some opportunity to kind of to work it out. But ultimately, the coach makes the decisions, and that's what has to happen in order for that relationship to work.
Mark, I asked you before about your connectivity to this city, and it's unquestioned, right? Because you love this city, and this city loved you, right? But you also understood this city, and you look at athletes. Some, you probably have not been following the drama with the Mets and the thumbs down salute to Met fans.
I follow all New York sports.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
But Mark, let me ask
Mark,
you.
sorry about that. You've had to ride with this soap opera.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, Mark, why doesn't the modern athlete get it? Like Francisco Lindor comes here. I understand he might not like getting booed. But the fan is there they want to cheer the Rangers at the Garden, the Knicks at the Garden, the Mets at Citi Field, the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. They don't go there to boo. They boo because you know what? They don't like what they're watching. They paid their hard-earned money. Why doesn't some guys don't get it when they come here?
Well, that's why you have to have good people around you in order to help you through those tough times like that, especially in any city really there. But I think where the confusion gets, in my opinion, I don't know anything, but I think the confusion happens is that, when they're not booing the person himself, they're booing the performance. And if you look at it that they're booing you is because, and you're feeling that you're not a good guy or a bad guy, or they don't like you as a person, whatever, that can kind of get conflated there with exactly what's going on there. And I really believe that when you play sports, you are vulnerable to some ridicule at times if you're not performing up to the level of expectations. But don't take it to the point that when they boo you that you're not a good guy and take it personally. And I think when that happens there, then obviously you cross the line and they say things that you regret, and then it's hard coming back. Look, it's not that you can't come back when emotions get high. Sports is about emotions. The fans love emotion. They love players that play with emotion. It's what makes the sport so compelling. But I just think that you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, and you got to be able to suck up when you don't have a good day and fess up to it and admit it. And ultimately, in the end, your play will determine the outcome. And to concentrate on performing. That's the number one thing, and not what's going on else around you.
All right, Mark, I got to get a little advice, right? This is a question from my wife, Donna, all right? So, no, here you go. A little hockey advice from Mark Messier, right? So amazingly enough, I didn't grow up playing hockey, right? My last name is Malusis. I'm overweight, this and that. I'm not, my last name's not Messier, Gretzky, or anything like that,
Someone
right?
once told Moose that he has a body for bowling.
That's exactly
that in
right.
perspective.
That's exactly right. So,
And it wasn't me.
So my wife, I told my wife we're interviewing Mark Messier today. She loves you, this and that. She's like, can you do me a favor? Can you ask any advice for, like, we've got 3 boys, 2 of them are playing hockey. Like, any advice for the family out there that have got young boys and girls that are playing hockey? What's your greatest advice you can give to them?
Well, it's for me, it's very simple. Do they love it? And
They do.
Are they having a great time? If they love it, they're having a great time, and they can't wait to get out the door to get on the ice. I mean, that to me is a start. That shows you, and it doesn't matter if it's hockey or bowling or lacrosse or baseball or football, whatever they're doing. You hope that they love dancing, arts, doesn't matter. So you just hope that they have a thread to hang on to that they really love. Once they love it, then it's really kind of up to them to kind of put the work in to master the skills of hockey. And that's, we always say the 4 fundamentals of hockey are shooting, skating, passing, and stick handling. And so, it's as simple as that. You got to get out there and you got to practice. You got to skate. And most importantly, if they're not out there with a smile on their face, there's got to be something wrong. And the last thing I would say is make sure nothing hurts, especially their skates, because there's nothing worse than hockey than having sore feet.
I like that. From the very philosophical to the very specific.
Make sure their feet don't hurt.
That was good advice all around.
Mark, we appreciate the time this morning. We really do. Glad to hear your dad's doing well, family's doing well. Keep driving them straight on the golf course, and appreciate the time.
Hey, thanks very much, you guys. Take care.
You got it.